Hey guys, this is
Dicks.
DMS. Oh no!
Dude, fuck you! I thought we were just like to get some fuck.
I'm gonna save that. I'm saving that. Hey guys, this is DMS3,
And this is JD,
and welcome to episode 4 of the Unnamed Audio Podcast.
now recorded on a potato. Again.
Gosh, is it already really episode 4? This is blowing my mind how fast these are going by. It literally feels like we've done like a single episode.
Yeah, it feels like we haven't done much, but here we are.
It feels like we've talked about HiFiman quite a bit though recently.
Spoilers.
I'm not gonna get too far into that. Yeah, I'm not gonna get too far into that yet. All right, well, I guess let's go on and kick it off with the news. So those Klipsch headphones that we talked about last week that look really interesting. Some more details have come out on those, and you know, I'm gonna let you bring in this one because you can probably say it better than I can.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. So there are actually going to be 3 models, and we'll go from the bottom up effectively. The cheapest model, which will go from $299 to $499, will be, semi-sealed, so semi-closed, on your design that will have a wired version, probably the cheapest, a wireless, probably in the middle of the price range, and wireless with active noise canceling with a 40mm biocellulose driver. Problem there is on-ear.
Yeah, which, I mean, as far as we had talked about for ourselves, and I feel like a lot of people, that's going to make these headphones pretty irrelevant. I mean, unless you're, kind of one of those sadistic people that's into on-ear headphones, which, I mean, if you're into that, more power to you.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. And their mid-range, which is also 400, is semi-open, also on-ear, with that damn 40mm biocellulose driver again.
You were supposed to be the chosen one.
Yeah, and it's all kind of like not great news even. Their sort of most exciting model, I would say, is going to be 1,000. It's going to be around ear, over ear, so that's something. Still semi-open. It's using a 52mm biocellulose driver, so a little bit better. And, it's made of really nice materials, machined metal, milled walnut, and actual leather for, like, the headband and the pads.
So long story short, basically this is the only one that's relevant to us.
It is, and the problem is, at 1,000, like, there's some real competition at that price point, and, like, to not be relegated to obscurity, basically, like, these are really going to have to, knock it completely out of the park, and I don't have high hopes for that.
I mean, that being said, even if, if the on-ear ones actually do just, like, knock my socks off and knock me out of the park, then I will give them a thumbs up, but I just don't see myself being a big fan of on-ear headphones, really, in hardly any situation, but you know what? We'll see. Will we actually? I don't know. You think that we'll have an opportunity to demo those? I'm not sure. Is it too early for that?
I think it's too early. Apparently, like, they're like a super early prototype, and I don't believe any were even available for demo at CES. So I'm not sure.
Fair enough. And on the subject of demoing things, this is probably a little bit early for this news too, but we'll bring it up a few more times. But we are both going to be attending Can Jam in New York, actually on February the 4th and 5th. So that's going to be pretty exciting. I'm going to be doing several videos while I'm up there, as well as trying out tons of fabulous cans that I've never heard before. So if you guys never hear from me again, it's because I got lost there.
Yeah.
I mean, in, like, audiophile heaven.
I thought you meant Lost in New York, like Home Alone 2. I
mean, I'd rather just get picked up by Sennheiser and thrown into a lab, and but I mean, I could set a bunch of booby traps for some guys that look like homeless people that are trying to break into like some weird relative's abandoned house. Yeah, that's fine. It sounds like a really good Christmas movie. right?
You're talking about two different Home Alones. In reality, you'll probably wind up finding yourself in some random hotel, meeting Donald Trump and asking him for directions.
You're right. You're right. I don't even know what movie I'm in anymore.
No, that literally happens in Home Alone 2. It takes.
I couldn't remember if it was in 2 or. This isn't even audio related now. This is.
It's not. This has gone so far off the rails.
You know what? It's fine. It's all staying in here. It's chill.
Yeah, it happens.
If you're watching this and you have an appreciation for Home Alone 2, then you know. I mean, it's probably the same level of appreciation that we have for on-ear headphones.
yeah, pretty much.
So
literally, it's all lols at that point, you know.
Yeah, I just can't.
So moving on.
Yes, moving on. Spoiler alert: HiFiman is stirring some trouble up again.
Yeah.
Really, just not setting up the cards well for HiFiman this year.
No. So what happened is, as I'm sure you all heard in our last episode, HiFiman came out with a bunch of new headphones, or actually one real interesting pair, at CES last week. Unfortunately, the entire audio community was not happy with HiFiman about that, and so Dr. Fang, HiFiman's CEO, decided to go on HeadFi and proceeded to not make a very good impression on the people, shall we say. You know, he compared, you know, how HiFiman is behaving to the Cultural Revolution in China from a couple decades ago, and you know, it wound up massively backfiring on him. The thread in question on the forums wound up getting locked. It just did not go well.
Right, like, HiFiman, this is not the time to have an ego. This is the time to humble yourself as much as possible and try and fix your relationship with your customers. I mean, I don't know what they're trying to do here. I don't know how they're not seeing this, but it's definitely going to have a toll on pretty much everyone in the current audiophile community's outlook on them for at least the foreseeable future. So I don't know if they're going to try and change anything, honestly, at this point, or what's going to happen, but they're really opening the door for a lot of other companies to kind of fill their shoes, I would say.
Yeah, they really are, and, you know, like, especially with, hopefully, these new mono-price M1060s coming out, I have a really strong feeling like they're really going to eat a lot of HiFiman's lunch in the lower end, and I don't know how much HiFiman has in the higher end. They're like HE1000 and such to, you know, keep themselves afloat, really.
M1060 Hype Train 2017.
Yep.
Coming out the week after CanJam, so.
Yep. So basically, get your credit cards ready.
Yep, that's going to be a very, very exciting week for my channel too. I'm going to be posting all these videos from CanJam while I'm getting the M1060s, you know, and testing them out and everything, and then doing a review on those immediately after, probably right after I've got them for, you know, like half a week or something like that, which will be about the time I'm finishing up and posting the last of my CanJam videos. So that's going to be like a pretty major week for the channel, and I know we've got a special surprise planned for that too. We're not going to spoil yet. Yeah. So you'll just have to see whenever the time rolls around.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of our impressions on the podcast as well. We might do some crazy stuff of, like, you know, we might try and release, like, you know, 2 episodes that week, or at least record 2 episodes that week or something, just so that our opinions are fresh, and or 1 super long episode, something like that. You'll be getting a special treat in terms of the podcast, at least.
Absolutely, and I would definitely expect more content that week than normal. Like, absolutely, I'll be getting as much done as I possibly can. So, and another thing I want to note about that is, I mean, when it comes to the things I'm going to be doing at CanJam, don't expect, like, full-on reviews and stuff. Most of it's going to be like, cool things that we find here and there and impressions and whatnot. I don't want to do like a full review on a product I've only tested for a few minutes, but I think it'll be a really good opportunity for me to kind of like, explain some really cool things that I find there and kind of show you guys what's out there that you may not know as much about. So it'll be a really interesting journey for everybody, myself included.
Yeah, and I think more of, like I kind of mentioned, more of our extended impressions will be here on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And more of like the short, cool video type stuff, so you can actually like see, what all this cool stuff looks like, will be on, the video side of the DMS3 channel. My
God, it's almost like that's how videos work.
Almost.
Oh gosh.
The future.
The episode of SpongeBob where he's down in the really dark place where everything's all like titanium, and he's just going, oh no, it's Squidward when he's in the future and he goes, future. I'm gonna stop now.
Please do. Who lives in the pineapple under the sea?
I mean, it's not me. Who's porous and yellow and another word I can't think of. Absorbent.
It's sure.
NFB11 back at it again with the white vans.
Yeah, so I figured in this episode, maybe it would be a good idea to talk about amp topologies and just sort of explain, why NFB11 is so good and why we just kind of like jizz so hard over it.
It's one way to put it. And honestly, after looking at, because you sent me a schematic of what the this kind of platform is for how the NFB11 is mapped out, and I was looking at it because I've built amps in the past, and I just saw the way this thing's laid out, and I've never seen anything like it. It's a very strange and foreign-looking circuit map to me, so I definitely can see what makes this thing so unique, but you did a really good job of explaining it before. Yeah,
so basically there are two types of amp topologies. There's the topology that's pretty much traditional, that's in use in, the amp in your phone, the amp in your home theater system, the amp in, let's say, your Shitfola everywhere, which is called the Lin architecture. It's been around since the 60s, pretty much every amp. What Audio GD uses is called current conveyor, which is much, much less common in the audio world, but it's actually super common in gigahertz radio frequencies for amplifying that. Like the amplifier for, let's say, your Wi-Fi is probably a current conveyor style amplifier. Effectively, so really only three big companies, actually four, use current conveyor. Audio GD, Krell, Questyle, and Bakun.
Of which I've only really heard of one out of those.
Which one?
I wonder.
Audio GD. I thought you had heard of one previously. Sorry. Basically, Bakun is Japanese and super expensive. Questyle is Chinese and pretty expensive. Audio GD is Chinese and relatively reasonably priced. And Krell is, I believe, US made and extremely, extremely, extremely pricey. They're one of those companies that makes, $20,000 speaker amps.
Which is a bit out of the price range of your average consumer, if you ask me.
Yeah. Apparently their stuff is very good. I've never heard it, but yeah.
I mean, I figured it, for that price, it'd probably be pretty decent, but
Yeah. And in my experience, even the shittiest current conveyor design still sounds amazing and can outperform most Lin designs. And the problem is most people who design amps aren't great, and their circuits are just not super well engineered, so they don't sound amazing. There are some amazing Lin circuits out there, and they're absolutely incredible because, what I tend to say is current conveyor gets you like 95%. It gets you so close to the top, but you can't possibly get that last, 5%. with the good Lin design, you can push it over and get that last 5%.
And that last 5% can make a pretty big difference.
It can. I mean, the problem is you're getting into like end game and super diminishing returns at that point, in my opinion.
And very, 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 very expensive.
Sometimes not so much, but it can be. Yes,
Right. More than you're going to spend on, probably the NFP11.
Yes, without a doubt. The other thing I wanted to explain with this is current control versus voltage control, which is something that a lot of people don't seem to understand kind of how it works and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to try and explain it here. I don't know how many of our listeners know of Ohm's law. Voltage equals, I believe it's current divided by resistance.
I will fact check that real quick while you're going.
Yeah. I always use a calculator, and I always get to look it up before I do any Ohm's law calculating. But basically, to put it into layman's terms effectively, high impedance headphones like Biodynamics and most Sennheisers, most high-end Sennheisers, require very precise voltage control that can swing very fast. That can go from, whatever full voltage is, let's say it's 10 volts, down to 0 volts in, milliseconds.
Okay, and here we go. Yeah, resistance in ohms is equal to voltage divided by current in amps. So
yeah, that makes sense. So that high impedance stuff, Beyers and Sennheisers, requires super accurate voltage control, like I said. Historically, the easiest way to get super accurate voltage control is with, OTL, output transformerless tube amps. The problem is, tube amps have some downsides. They run hot, they use a lot of electricity, and eventually tubes burn out.
Which can be dangerous in OTL.
Yeah.
Because the output transformer, if something does fail, will protect your headphones from being destroyed.
Effectively, yeah. Most even OTL amps these days have some sort of like protection, load circuitry in them to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's true.
But some don't.
Bottlehead crack. I'm pretty sure bottlehead crack is an OTL. I'll have to check on that.
It is.
Yeah, that's a very, very simple OTL. I don't think it has any sort of fail-safes in it.
I'm not 100% sure. But on the flip side to that, you have planars that, they don't really care too terribly much about the accuracy of your voltage, but what they care a lot about is the accuracy of your current, how many effectively watts you're putting into the headphone.
Which is why they can be so dang hard to drive even at low impedance.
Yep. Basically, they need a lot of power usually, and again, they need it to be accurate, not swing between, let's say, 1.1 watts and 1.0 watts back and forth a lot. Just stay steady at 1.1 the entire time, pretty much.
It's my power and I need it now.
Exactly. And generally for this, for the most part, I mean, there are exceptions. There are really nice OTL amps that work well for, low impedance planars and high impedance dynamics like Sen and Bayer. There are solid state amps, for example, like the shit Asgard 2, that works pretty well for planars, doesn't have a ton of power, but works pretty well, and works surprisingly well being solid state for high impedance stuff. But generally, for planars and for amps that or for headphones that require accurate voltage control, you generally want solid state amps.
Right. And that's getting into a whole nother realm there too. It's tubes and solid state kind of in end game.
Yeah. And in my experience, I've heard a lot of tube amps, I've heard a lot of solid state amps. I tend to think that the current conveyor stuff, which I've heard a bunch of it, tends to do both voltage control and current control really accurately with a nice amount of current and, really fast, and it's pretty incredible. And that's kind of what makes Audio GD so incredible is it does, it performs that well. It does that well at its job at $300, give or take.
Exactly. You're really, you're getting something that has the best of both worlds with that, with your extreme control over both your current and your voltage.
Yeah.
And I really can't even think of, I couldn't say anything else about it. You've said more than I could even think of, so.
yeah, just kind of wait, 2 weeks or something until DMS has his NFB11, and he absolutely, is in love with it. And
oh my god.
The review's going to be interesting.
Absolutely it is. Hype train.
Hashtag the hype is real.
Hashtag hype train. Oh god, it's the NFB11 hype train and the M1060 hype train. It's going to be an exciting next month for me. We've got about, 8 minutes left. Would you be interested in talking about, we talked a little bit about physical media formats before and kind of how they're starting to die out. What do you think about that? Do you think we want to delve into it today?
I think we can.
Yeah. The reason this came to mind is because whenever I'm traveling, I still take a little Walkman and some portable cassettes with me. I know they don't sound great, but it's more or less just kind of, it's kind of nostalgic. It's fun. They have a really organic sound, and you don't really worry about selecting your music. You just kind of put in something and let it play for an hour and a half until you have to flip sides. And
are you secretly Star-Lord? Do you have Awesome Mix Volume 1?
Absolutely. If I had a cassette player and didn't have Awesome Mix Volume 1, I would be... Well, I surely wouldn't be here right now. That would be terrible.
Fair enough.
So, I don't know, it had me thinking about that a little bit, and we talked a little bit about this on the side too, is that physical media formats are just getting less and less common. And yeah, vinyl is starting to kind of make a little bit of a comeback, but it's certainly not a big mainstream thing. Like, you don't see people going out and buying CDs and buying, for a while music was selling on like micro SD cards and little weird formats like that, and then they had Blu-ray music and all these other things that they're just dying off because the extreme convenience. Even iTunes is suffering because the extreme convenience of streaming now for Tidal and Spotify, and I guess Apple has kind of recovered with Apple Music, but you really don't see people even purchasing much digital music these days.
Exactly, because that's the thing. For the cost of one CD or one digital album a month, I can have effectively the entire history of music right on my phone,
exactly.
Right in my computer. And to me, at least, that's 100% worth, the cost of entry there, the like $10 a month.
Exactly. And there's so many formats too. There's Google Play Music, Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. There's just so many things out there right now that you can really choose from. So, it's not like you're limited to one thing or another. And, another thing too about that is that streaming is so convenient. I guess this started with the whole Netflix thing, that it's actually, people were streaming stuff on there. But streaming music is so convenient that it's honestly easier to use a streaming service than it is for people to even like download and pirate music. They're fighting piracy with convenience, extreme convenience.
Exactly, and in my opinion, that's the best way to fight piracy is, make it easy, make it inexpensive for me to get what I want, and I will happily pay you for it.
Exactly. There is a downside, of course. Artists, there's been a big stink about this, and I don't want to get into that, but artists haven't been getting paid as much as they really should for their music and stuff like that, pennies on the dollar and whatnot, but yeah. That's a whole nother circus, because
I've been reading. Like, I was reading a thing earlier this week that, Rick Astley, I think last year, said that, like, from all the times people have been Rickrolled, all the times that video's been linked, he's made $12 off of YouTube ads.
That is not okay.
No. Granted, he, there could be things with his label and craziness there, but I don't want to talk out of turn there.
Right, yeah. Not necessarily our, we haven't really done much research on that, but I mean, and like I said, that's a whole nother story, but I feel like physical media, while it is dying off pretty hard in mainstream markets, I feel like it's still going to survive to an extent, simply because digital media is definitely better in terms of quality, I'd say, especially with lossless audio. I feel like physical media, while it is dying, it has a certain experience to it. There's an experience to taking a CD out of the case, or taking a cassette out of the case, or vinyl out of its sleeve, and putting it down and putting a needle across it, and starting to listen like that, or popping a CD in a player and letting it spin up, or a cassette in a cassette player. And there's a certain satisfaction to owning physical media.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's the whole collection thing of I don't really feel like a set of files on my hard drive is like a proper collection, but going to a shelf and seeing let's say 100 CDs there, that feels like a collection.
Right.
On top of that, you've lost, you lose a lot of experiences. It's still interesting to me, what artists put in the little booklet that comes with CDs.
Exactly.
Still, which you've completely lost. Well, for the most part, there are some albums on iTunes that include a PDF of the booklet, but not many.
Right, but there was a time where you'd sit down, you'd put in a CD, you'd press play, and then you'd take out the jewel case while you're listening to the CD and just kind of flip through the pictures and stuff in it, and just let the whole thing play through.
Yeah.
And just you'd just be completely focused on that and the experience it was providing, it was kind of uninterrupted. And now, you have a playlist of 400 songs that are all just randomly selected to go perfectly together while you're browsing Instagram or something like that. And that is great. I love the convenience of it. It's wonderful. I use it all the time. I just think that there is still, and I feel like there will for a long time be a place for physical media to still exist.
Yeah. And also part of the thing is, I don't know about, from your experience, and we both probably have relatively similar experience here, but artists that I know have basically told me, if you really want to, give me money in the way that gets the most money into my bank account, buy the CD, basically.
Yeah, because artists these days, it's really hard for them to make money off actual CD sales and stuff like that. I mean, most of the time, the only way artists make money is by playing shows and selling merch. If they can actually get CD sales, that's a big bonus for them.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously there's the playing shows and merch, but if they're not playing any shows near you, the next best option is, buying the physical media rather than even buying the album on iTunes.
That's true. And actually, there's a weird psychology about that too, because for some reason I find it, if I own an album on iTunes, I find that more satisfying than just having it on Spotify. I don't know why. There's something oddly satisfying about owning something.
Exactly. Having ownership, having the fact that these files are effectively mine, and
right.
Even if my Comcast stopped working, I'd still have these files.
Right, or if I wasn't paying for a subscription, I would still have these.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know how it is that works. We'll have to talk about that another day, though, because we are running up right now at the end of episode 4 of the Unnamed Audio Podcast. So that's it for this week, guys. Stick around. This will be posted on the SoundCloud. I guess I'll put a few links in the description to the YouTube channel and everything else. Probably I'll start linking articles that we talked about and things like that in the near future. I might get started with this episode, but we'll see. If you want to support the channel on Patreon, I'll also provide a link in the description. And until next time, guys, peace.
Bye-bye.